So Ken Hughes, as a consumer behaviourist, you're seeing a lot of interesting trends. What are the three key tips that you see for retail brands as they look to sustain themselves in the future?
I suppose if you want to talk retail, there's three trends in retail. I would say local online is probably a really interesting trend. So the e-commerce space has generally been owned by the large businesses. And I think this is going to bring so many local or smaller SME businesses into e-commerce. Again, the back's against the wall, so we have to do something. I think that's going to accelerate e-commerce in society hugely. And I think we're going to see online activity for retail just go up and up and up from here. This is going to be the tipping point when we look back on the history of e-commerce. Maybe this is going to be one of those pivot points. And so I think that's going to accelerate hugely. That leads me into the second, I suppose, trend of what I call phygital, a collision of the physical and the digital. And so no matter what business you're in, if you have physical stores, you have to have such a strong digital messaging and digital presence today, because it's a digital first world. If you only have a pure play digital business, you have to have a physical presence in the world somewhere. So there's this real collision of physical and digital, that we all live our lives that way. And I think understanding that's really important and leading with that. And also from a retail point of view, then if you take that whole swing to online, swing to e-commerce, the phygital reality, there are implications to retail then. Like, I mean, something simple like the death of cash. I'm quite interested in, again, this is a tipping point of the death of cash. Is this going to be the moment where we look back, a bit like China, where cash isn't used anymore, where we are so used to clicking and so used to click and collect and so used to tap to pay and so used to using our phones to pay? Will cash cease to be a thing? And if that ceases to be a thing, which it likely is going to be, then again, it brings us all to a whole different model of retail. So, will click and collect become the store of the future instead of actual stores. And so as a retailer, I think looking at all those things, what does that mean for our conversation today, for instance, about digital advertising? What does it mean for, if you're in the retail space, what do you do as a digital advertiser? I think to sum up some of our conversation, it's owning the digital space, realizing that people are spending a huge amount of time on digital, and that's a massive opportunity. And so you have to be investing in that digital space more than you previously were. It's that simple. I mean, if your investment plan from an advertising point of view is kind of broadly similar to last year, where are you? Because look at society. We're in a completely different place. Consumers are spending so much more time digitally with huge new sets of values and needs. And you're doing the same thing as you were last year? Now that's just bananas. So, I mean, you have to look at the reality of being digitally driven today, having a huge digital presence and investing significantly more than you ever were before on that digital connection. Then that brings us on to the relevant content point. So that's only the first step, investing in the digital space and having the digital space, being there. If you're not there, you're invisible as a business. So, don't be invisible, be there digitally for the consumer. But then what are we saying? How are we relevant? How are we curating that conversation? What are we saying to the consumer? How do we make sure that we don't become the wallpaper? And so therefore we have to connect in a way that's with a conversation that's relevant, that draws them in, that puts a smile on the face. And lastly then, so you bought the space, you put something decent into the space. The third one is change it, because the reality is that message was great yesterday or last week. But you wouldn't open your social media feed and read the same stories from your friends and family every day, would you? No, because you want new stories. So the challenge, I think, and a lot of retailers get this wrong, is they do the first bit, right place, right time. The really good ones get the last bit right messaging. But then they step away and they leave that, go for weeks and weeks and weeks. But I'm interfacing with it every day. So I need new stories, new reasons to interface with your brand, and that's a huge challenge. That's where we got to bring the creativity and the innovation to the messaging, maybe use your agencies, whatever the solution is. But really investing in the space online, getting the conversation right, and then lastly, changing that conversation, updating it regularly to make the brand feel that it's a person and that we're having a conversation. They're the challenges, really.
Yeah, to be agile enough to be human, right? To make it feel like it's a human interaction rather than something that you're just blasting out.
That's it. I mean, if as a user I feel that there's pop-ups and it's just coming at me, that's so easy to filter out today. Whereas what I won't filter out is the connection piece. So for a brand or business, you have to strip it back to remembering there's humans at the other side of the screen. How do I make them feel something? How do I make them smile? And if you sense check every communication with that, you'll realize that a lot of the stuff you're doing is just noise. And there's no point in paying for noise because everyone else is paying for noise and it just disappears. So, get it right, invest in the spend, invest in the right place, right time, but really then look at that last piece of the jigsaw. What are we saying? Why are we saying it? What are we expecting them to do? And then how can we change and keep that conversation alive on a regular basis that draws them in and keeps them here?